there are a few other things I want to talk about on the VZR. It's the array of physical buttons that it has. Again, these are physical buttons, which means you press them on it, on the device itself, and that manipulates the data before it even gets to, in my case, Windows. So before your streaming software even sees that data, it will see the modified data. So you're not doing anything in drivers, you're not doing anything in your software or streaming or your service provider or anything like that that's picking up the stream. You're not making any changes elsewhere. Okay, so first, I've turned the brightness setting on it down. It actually has two buttons for turning the brightness, and that's not the LED. That's another setting on here. So you'd think, okay, I've been complaining all this time about brightness, and look at how high I can make it. That's as high as it goes. So what happens if I pull that up and use it as a webcam and turn myself right way around? Okay. Excuse the angle. Is that better? Definitely richer color. I don't know that that's accurate. Okay, does this compare? I now have sunlight leaking into the room because I've been doing this video for long enough. So this is not. Well, I'm gonna pull back that curtain. Oh, now I have light falling on my monitor. Okay, so this is an illuminated room. Now, there's a big difference in lighting now. Okay, so let's imagine that we're in like a classic environment and we have windows and all this kind of thing. Well, if I turn this down to its minimum setting, okay, obviously that's too dark. Can I find something that's optimal? I actually have light streaming on my monitor, so the dust is making it annoying to see anything. So I'm going to fix that. Okay, so that's pretty good. Okay, so we're doing a more authentic lighting. I still have the light overhead, and I can manipulate the settings here. Okay, so what's our limitation? Our limitation in terms of lighting quality is the fact that the VZR needs more authentic lighting. It needs more room lighting, it needs more diffuse lighting. It is not forgiving for regular, everyday, like basement lighting or something like that. Like, it can't deal with awful lighting. And the fact that it can't deal with like everyday lighting in a bedroom at night or something like that, right? Means that it can't be used as a webcam under a lot of conditions. Like if a person is streaming a video game or something like that, they're not going to have a whole lot of lighting. They're going to just be sitting in front of a monitor, maybe with a light on overhead, and that's it. And the VZR it won't be appropriate. So a well-lit room, classroom, obviously, will be fine. But when a person thinks about a webcam, they think of entirely different conditions. Okay, so fine. Okay, let's make that forgiving. The other thing I wanted to show was I'm going to bring you back down. Okay, we're looking at the page. And again, I don't even have to move the book. Okay, I got a physical button on here that forces it to auto focus. Perfect. This has a feature physically on it to let me zoom in. Okay. I don't have to do anything. Oh, it's getting grainy. Okay, so that's its maximum setting, which is like times 16 or something like that. So when I was pulling in and out with the book, I can actually put this down on the table. I don't have to take the arm and move it up and down if I wanted to zoom in on some particular text. So let's say I want to show these nice flowers here. And that's at the extreme zoom. There's a little bit of sparkling there, which is kind of normal when you're ridiculous. That's acceptable. That's pretty crazy zoomed in. And again, like the quality that you're getting. This is not optical zoom. So this is not a set of lenses that are moving closer, like a if you've got a digital cam, or pardon me, if you've got a camera with an analog photo lens or something like that, and you're twisting it to move this lens in and out, kind of like binoculars that you're making sharper. This doesn't have anything like that with a series of lenses that's moving in and out. This is entirely digital, entirely in it. Okay, so this is something a webcam's never going to do. Never, ever. And the fact that it's on an articulating arm, okay, it's on an articulating arm, maybe you can move it down. The fact that it's on an arm doesn't mean it's easy to move. You're always going to get this jitter where the camera's going to come down and it's going to wobble around because it's not an amazing arm or anything. But I mean, the VZR, it's on a base. If I'm moving my desk around, I'm literally wobbling my desk around. But it's not going to matter because the book is on the exact same surface as the VZR. So if I bump the desk, I bump the book, I bump the VZR, I bump them all in unison. They all go in the exact same way, so you're not going to see a whole lot of jitter. If I've got an arm and I'm pointing the arm down, even when it's excellent, you're going to get bounce when the desk moves. And if it were on a separate tripod and the tripod has an arm, I actually have a boom arm over there. If I did something like that and I had the camera over and I would have moved the camera down, it would not be nearly as, obviously it wouldn't be as good as a zoom button. But even the VZR, if I were to hold the base, because the base will tip over even though it's quite heavy, even if I were just to hold on to the base of the VZR and move it up and down, it doesn't compare. I could go and, the fact is I don't have camera threading on this particular webcam. I didn't have the budget to buy both that threaded webcam and the VZR. I didn't plan for that because I thought the VZR would just be amazing as a webcam and obsolete it anyway. So let me, am I zoomed back out? I am not. So I'm going to forgive the VZR for the cost of that base. So you've got some hardware buttons that makes your life really easy. I don't have to lean over, and the angle is a little weird on this. You can, if I were to, well, let's look at that right now. One of the nuisances of like reading from a book, for example. Right now, I want to do this. I want to have me visible as I'm storytelling, and I want to have the book visible. But the fact is that I've got to look down at the book, or look over here at the book, and you'll notice where my head and my eyes are going. Now, if I wanted, I could have the book tilted up, like so, and then my nose points right at it, and the nature of the articulating arm of the IPEVO means that I can lift it up, please excuse that angle, and I can angle the camera down. So I could have this on a little, not a lectern, but I could have it on a little wedge of some sort, and I could kind of have the image be just, I am in fact leaning the book up against the IPEVO itself, IPEVO VZR. And let's see. Well, the fact is I can't make the VZR work at quite the right angle. I can't. Am I zoomed out? No, I can't do it. But what I could do is, I suppose I could lean the entire VZR over, something like this. So this is a major disadvantage of the VZR over something like an articulating arm. An articulating arm, you could have pull right close or right back, and you can get very, very wide angles very easily. So if I wanted to, I could literally have a lecture. I would love to just stand up when I'm reading because the lungs expand and you can sound a lot better. And I could stand and I can have this like in front of me, and I could still have a camera over my shoulder for all that mattered. But with the VZR, I really am limited more of having something flat. I would definitely have it at least on a small angle, because this can deal with that angle. I wouldn't say extremely well. That's a really good angle. And if you're looking at me reading like this, I can still look up, and it's just like a person sitting there in front of the kids reading, which I would not call Grimm's fairy tales for these days for children. Okay, so maybe this is not the kind of book that I would read for the kids, unless they were mine, but it's definitely not something for like 6-year-olds. It used to be. It is not anymore. That is a discussion that can be had with high school students about the nature of storytelling, how it's changed over the years. So what have I talked about? I've talked about the zoom and the angle, and I've talked about natural lighting. So the VZR is pretty vindicated. However, a webcam is going to be half the price, maybe a third the price. It's going to have excellent performance in the same excellent lighting. It's going to have good zoom, but not the button on it. I could use software to do zooming with a webcam, and I just don't know offhand how to do that. I haven't prepared that ahead of time. So you can imagine that you can get some reasonable zooming on a webcam. But the convenience of having a bar full of buttons that can let me correct this. I wasn't going over all of the buttons. Okay, fine. So I've got an autofocus. Who cares? The autofocus is really nice anyway. I don't know why that button is even there. I've got brightness settings. Okay, really, I guess I just don't know why those buttons are there. I don't care. You've got the zoom features, which, up and down, I think is absolutely spectacular when you've got circumstances which need you to just very quickly look at something. And I think that's an extremely engaging thing to do. Imagine that you've got a children's book, a proper children's book, and it's got a lot of pictures and large words. And maybe what you want to do is you want to talk a little bit more and not just have it on a static page like this, right? So if I can, let me pull the camera up so we can see more of the page. Remember, I've got a large arm, so I can look at quite a large area. I can pull it up even more. Why don't I do that? Right, so I can actually get an extremely large book here if I just have the IPEVO way up and then angle it down to see everything. Now imagine that I'm reading a nice children's book. I don't want to have the page static like this. If I want to pause for a second, obviously this has more text than a little children's book. If I wanted to stop and I want to talk, stopping and talking with a scene like this, with the complete book scene, is not very good. I want them to look at me, but I also want them to have something interesting to look at as well. And there's interesting stuff up here, but it's being distracted by the text down here. Now I can manipulate the book. I can do this, okay, and it can be, these are two children that are such and such a story. But one of the advantages, well, I can now do this. And I can, it's so much easier to look down. So I can do this, and I can talk about the story. And now I've got the intimidation of the words gone, and I'm zoomed in really nicely so they can see the pictures, because that's what some kids are focusing on, is the pictures. That's how they're following along. And the fact that there are hardware buttons on this makes that really easy, like life-changingly easy. Now, of course, you've seen the flip button. Okay, doesn't matter at all. Doesn't matter at all unless you're using it for a webcam. The next is I don't know. I guess it's fun, really. I don't know why I would ever want to do it, but I can change it from this, and this is one of the nuisances because I don't know when I'll get back to this mode, to, okay, reverse. That's going to be really useful sometimes. Really useful. Just not for me. Okay. Why ever I would want this, I cannot imagine. Perhaps if you're taking photographs as text and you wanted to do something like that and just get rid of everything else. No. Okay, so this is direct black. Well, this is grayscale, is it not? This may just be black and white. I could have looked this up. I didn't, sorry. Okay, again, same thing, reversed. Now this would be let us prove. Now, would this be good for taking a picture of and processing it better? Maybe this is how I should have done the OCR. But you look at the grain. Look at the grain on this and how it's kind of like it's moving. That's no good. I don't think this is very good compared to the regular mode. Next, I happen to really like Sepia. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm kind of in Sepia. This is beautiful. Maybe this is just a really nice, comfortable color for just text that's a lot less, again, intimidating than just the regular stuff. And I believe that is the correct thing. That is correct. Okay, so it's not that hard to cycle through. I will notice the one that I like. I would really, really hate cycling through all that just to get to Sepia. But what you gonna do? Because you've only got one button. And frankly, I could deal with would I pay extra for there to be 3 buttons just for the 3 different modes? Maybe one for cycling through them all, one for resetting to normal, one for going Sepia. I'd probably pay a bit more for that. And the other, of course, is the light, which I don't care. If you were in a dark room with a projector, that would be mandatory. And hopefully that light doesn't burn out. Okay, so I've talked about everything I want to talk about for that. So I would consider this moderate vindication over the articulating arm, the zoom, the lighting, all of the buttons, but the software and the OCR. It's bad. It's really bad.